Now that you've signed up for Desmos, where do you go from here? What are you going to do? So there's tons of activities that you can search for. So even just by up here, you can do search for any of the type of the math concepts that you want to cover with your class, or you can just start building an activity yourself. And one way of helping to build an activity is just go with these new starter screens. So I wanted to show you how there's some neat activities here, screens for just checking in. So as you can see, this activity offers starter screens that you can copy and paste into your activities, and these screens are intended to help you check in with the students, see how they're doing and so on. Checking for understanding, edible fraction tasks, popular screen remixes, and so on, whiteboards. Where I want to go to is this neat one, is random generators. So for our probability, statistics, units, we can definitely use something like this. All right, so we have an unsorted spinner, any value spinner, dice, and fraction dice. So these are basically samples that we can work with and make it our own. So I thought I'd show you how to do this, where I'm going to use just the dice here, activity, our starter screen. And what it does is shows us kind of this screen preview of what it could look like for the student. So I can click on this X right here, and it'd be like, okay, you roll, and you see the simulation of all these 4 dice rolling. Now that you're thinking, well, I don't want 4 dice, maybe I only want 1 die or 2 dice and so on. So you can now look at teacher moves. In these activities here, it shows you exactly what to do, okay, to how to add this particular activity to yours. So you basically going to copy this simulation and bring it into an activity that you can use for your own. And that shows you what to do here, and even about how to customize. To change the number of dice, it says select the computation layer script, and I'm going to explain what that means. It sounds very complicated, but it's not. And we're going to update the value of n. And then we can edit the note or add a math or text input, a table of values. And again, I'll show you all these things that you can add to your activity. First things first, let's copy. Copy that, close that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over in here with your activities. So there's a thing such as collections and then custom. So collections would be a collection of activities that you may have, but right now I'm just starting from scratch. I'm going to click on custom, and I'm going to create my own activity. So to do that, I'm going to look over here, new activity. We'll cover what polygraphs are later on, but I'll do a new activity for now, and I'm going to title it. So this will be our, let's say, dice activity. I can provide more instructions here or description of what this is going to look like. Just leave it blank for now. I am not going to leave this private. I do want this so that if I do share the link, that anyone can access this. All right, so create new activity. So when this loads here, first of all, it's just basically blank canvas, and then you have all these components you can add to any of your activities. I really love this because you can make any activity you want and build it the way you want it specifically. Sometimes it can be a little overwhelming, which is why I wanted to show you how you can start with a starting screen. So what I've done is, because I copied that activity, that dice activity, it's in on my clipboard. So all I have to do is right click, paste, or Control V or Command V, depending on what device you're using. And now all of a sudden we have the stage for our dice activity. All right. Now, looking at this, it can be, again, a little bit like what's going on. What this is basically like the behind the scenes piece. It's like, okay, we have some graphs here. Like, well, it's not even a graph. We have our dice. How can we edit that? We're going to click on this guy here. This is that layer they were talking about, changing your script. And before you freak out with all of this HTML stuff here or whatever coding stuff they've done, it doesn't really matter. All you're going to do is change this 4, and let's say I want 2 dice instead of 4, and click done. And believe it or not, it will have 2. And anytime you want to check that to see any changes you've made, let's just click on preview. And you can see now I have 2. And I have this button that's already tied in, and you're going to see this back on the next layer, where if I click on roll, you can see the output here for on our dice. So I'm going to just click off of that, because there you go. This is that box that we just mentioned here. It says roll the dice. And it's done it specifically so it's a button, so that if they click on that button, so you see right here, there's like an action item. This is the button that's underneath this text, so that it says the action buttons let you control other components on the screen using computational layer. Sounds confusing. Basically, it does what you just saw. They've done the programming so that when the end user clicks on roll, that these dice will then roll. But maybe you want to add one other piece here. let's say, well, if I want the students to keep track of what was rolled, what I'd want to do is maybe insert a graph or a table here. So I've inserted a table. I can decide how many rows or columns I want. What I'm going to do is I'm automatically, going to add, just clicking here, insert column to the right. I might be thinking ahead. So I'm going to actually I'm going to insert one more. Oops, keep doing right click there, down arrow. And what I'm going to do is dice. 1, 2, number of rolls. We do like a tally of some kind, even if they choose a number 1, going across, and then last but not least, I want a total. Okay, perfect. And what I could do is set this up. Oops. Okay, let's see how this looks. Let's click on preview. All right, getting rid of this. Now take a look. So we have our dice, we have our table now, and you can see this is kind of locked down where all this gray is there. It's locked down so that the end user, the students, could type in values here and then put a total here. So if we rolled, okay, and we have a 3 and a 4, so we can go 3, and we can do 4, and you can decide how you want this to look. So whether you want to have number of rolls maybe adjacent to dice 1, so we can have number of rolls adjacent to dice 2, so we can actually do it that way too and get our total. That's completely up to you. I'm going to keep rolling, and if we have, again, now we have a 1 and we have a 4 again, so I'm just going to go 1 again and I keep going. So that's kind of like my tally. All right, and again, one more time. And when you're, when it's all said and done, what you could be doing then is having the kids even have a conversation prior to this activity, or even during and after the activity, what the expectation is to be, and what was the theoretical expectation to be when you're rolling, let's say 1 die, 2 dice, does one impact the other? So you can have a whole really rich conversation about that, and then even graphing things at the end. So it's completely up to you, but hopefully this is a great example of how you can create your own activity using some pre-built components in Desmos. And then what we want to do, last thing, is how do we get it into the hands of our students? We need to publish. And note, all that previous stuff that I was putting in the tallies and so on, that did not impact what gets published. That's just for my own playing around just to see how it works. And it's like, oh, maybe that's not exactly how I want it for my students. And you can decide as well how exactly you want it. I can go student preview again, back to what we just saw, or at this time I can assign. You have 2 options when you're doing assigning. Assign to your classes, and you can create classes within Desmos or a single session code. And if you do a single session code, just to show you that, this is a code that you can give the students, and then they can sign in and they can do this activity. And you can see up here, well, what could the students use? They could use a tablet and they could use a laptop. And this is an exclamation situation where it says it's not recommended for phones, so keep that in mind. So you'll want to make sure the students are on something like this. And I know it's not listed, but a Chromebook will work as well. All right, now, just for the student side of things, how can they get this code in? If we just go to, and I'm just going to copy that. And I'm actually going to open up a new tab for just a real quick moment. And if we just go to Desmos, just Google it and just go to Desmos, it will give me that landing page, and it will, hey, look at students, join your classmates, put that code in there. Okay, so when I copied that code, that didn't work. I'm going to put it in now. GX and join. Okay, and the students can put in their name. Obviously, it pre-populates when they signed into their Google Chrome account. So that's perfect. Let's say I'll just go testing student and go. now we're in this activity, and now as a student, I can do exactly what you've asked me to do here. And I hope this works well for you.